A group of women are gathered around a circle of tables in a large room. A sign reads, "Welcome, women safe." The women mingle as they prepare for a roundtable discussion. Title, Promising Practices. Caption, for service providers. Lisa Manuel, Director, Changing Lives and Family Violence Programs, Family Service Toronto. Lisa sits with the group.
If you are able to create a culture in an organization where there is a privileging of abuse, where we understand when people come to see us and their behaviors may be, labeled as odd or different or scary or pick your label, that we don't just automatically rush to judgment, that is a person who's trying to tell us something right in our own lobby or over the phone or in the community when we meet up with them. And we have to take the time to really spend some time allowing that conversation to happen. If you expect that you're going to get a straight story from A to Z, you might as well just recalibrate. People have to have that experience. It's a very chaotic experience that people bring to us if they are able even to find their way to someone who will listen. And we have to listen to that chaos and we have to be comfortable with it. And I sort of built a little rule for myself when I was doing counseling was that, for that first 5 or 10 minutes, it's just the dump. What's going on? And the dump could be, it could go back 20 years and today, and then it goes all over the place. But if I wasn't able to sit and be comfortable with that dumping time, the person I was working with would never be able to proceed. So I had to give that time, and I'm under all this pressure. I have to see this many clients and that sort of thing.
I think one of the big things that is really important is to acknowledge the power differential in that relationship. You as someone who is a counselor do hold a lot of power. And I think really having that be explicit and spoken about when you're first meeting that individual who may themselves feel like as someone who they may presume doesn't know much about their experience, may presume that you may have some of your own assumptions of people's abilities and capacity as it relates to disability, to be able to, lay the groundwork where you two get to work together as opposed to you coming in as the counselor holding all that knowledge. Because that woman really does, and that man also, they both are coming with their own lived experience and are the experts of that experience. And for you to be able to hear that.
It's really important that we meet people where they're at, that we can't expect a person with a disability to trundle into an office on a snowy day or a really hot day or whatever, that we create structures and environments where we go to meet people where they're at. That might be in their communities, it might be in their homes, it might be in their places of worship, it might be at their doctor's offices sometimes. We get quite creative about how we access people.
Julie Lafleur signs, it's important for the worker to know what the deaf community is like, what the characteristics of deaf people are. So it's important that the workers have a minimal understanding of the situations lived by deaf people who have experienced abuse. To make sure they have interpreter services, to look at the person directly in the eyes, to have basic information like this that allows for a link of trust already. And for people with disabilities, there are different needs depending on the disability too. So it's important for the workers to have knowledge of the situations of the people they're providing services to in order to build that trust.
De la situation des personnes qui sont pour lesquelles ils donnent un service, pour créer un lien de confiance.
Laure Frappier. I've housed many women, disabled women, women without disabilities, and also senior women with disabilities. And what they need is to be accompanied in the process of getting out of the violent situation. For them, sometimes just making a phone call is like climbing a mountain. It's totally inaccessible. So ask, would you like me to accompany you in this process? Would you like me to make the call for you? Because sometimes, if they have to call, be it legal aid or shelter, or if it's going to court, sometimes the process is so long. That if we are prepared and have the numbers at our disposal, we will then say, can I do it for you? This isn't much, but it helps the person to really feel trust, and their case moves forward. Never let somebody leave carrying their misery like a package under their arm and say, go home and make these calls yourself. She won't make them because they've been so demoralized that they don't have the strength to do these things alone.
This speaks to the issue for men with disabilities because, again, having safe spaces where they can come together as men, as peers, because you talked about the trauma people carry around who've been victims of abuse. Well, it's a lot harder for men to actually share their experiences of trauma around abuse because they're just not socialized to do that. And so the men I've spoken to around that is like, well, there aren't any spaces I can get together with guys and talk about my experiences. Don't have to be therapeutic spaces necessarily, but just spaces that are safe, where they can actually surface some of their experiences and know that they'll be supported and believed, you know, and not feel the stigma that for a lot of men, the stigma is around being open about my experience of abuse when I was 6 or 12. The internalized guilt is still very present for men. Having men who maybe have some lived experience around disability is helpful. I think the guys I was able to get together with knew that I was a man with lived experience, and I articulated my experience to them, so that made it a bit safer for them to actually want to sit in a room with someone who might be almost a stranger to them in an intimate sort of context, right? So that's one thing, and then also just being clear in terms of what it means to have a safe space. You know, what stays in a room, comes in a room, stays in a room. It's a very small community, even in this big city. Some guys were afraid of what they might share in a space might leak out, and then it's somebody else finds out about it. So
I think that when you are ready to leave, there are things that you can consider and have in place before making that decision. And one of those is about having a connection with somebody else who you trust and who you know will not come back and disclose any information that you've shared with them, in particular if there's somebody that already also knows your abuser. I think having an opportunity to know what's available in your community as far as services for women who are surviving violence. You may not go to them right away, but at least you know that they're there. And to be able to, you know, find that information out with the support of a friend. The other thing as well is to have some kind of plan in place for you, whether that is, you know, having your documents, having your medications, having anything that you need, that you know you need to take with you, ready to go. Whether that's, you know, in a place that you can grab the bag and go when you have that, you know, window of opportunity. That there are organizations that, you know, when you're ready, that they can also support you in finding a safe shelter and finding a space where you can get support. And sometimes that is available, you know, through a phone call, calling the Assaulted Women's Helpline, calling some of the distress centers if you don't have access to, you know, a provincial helpline. But, you know, getting that information sort of as part of your plan so that when you're ready, you'll be that much better prepared.
Marie-Lise Bergeron, I'm wondering that maybe we've reached the point where we should, people with all kinds of disabilities, band together to see what we can create in terms of a new organism or means of intervention. I'm not sure what to call it, and think of a concept that would rally all of our resources so that we aren't divided but are working together. Because for each of us, each kind of violence undermines us all as human beings. We feel that we are second-class citizens. We're always the ones at the bottom. But as soon as we define ourselves and define things we say, no, I'm not that, and you won't put me there, we need to know that these solutions won't come from specialists, social workers, doctors, who are nowadays just bureaucrats more than doctors, and so on. We are the ones who will make the decisions about this more and more, I believe, and it's from the bottom that we'll work to rise up. I see the slogan on the poster staring at me since I first arrived. Behind it, you'll see there are different service providers, including Tandem, which is part of the police, and the slogan written is, "When safety and accessibility go together." And here we are talking globally. We're really inclusive. The slogan continues, "Women with disabilities lead the way." I've been looking at this since I arrived today, and I agree, as long as we have our social security, financial security, physical integrity, health, support, all this together, plus universal accessibility, meaning no more physical barriers, no more obstacles in terms of prejudice from others, not only will we lead the way, but the way will open by itself. A black and white photo shows women. Some stand while others sit in motorized wheelchairs. The photo is captioned with, "Les femmes handicapées ouvrent la voie." In the photo, a woman speaks in an orange pylon raised in the air.